Well, here's another video you're probably not used to seeing on my channel, but I had a water leak in the area where my refrigerator goes, and noticed a water leak in front of the refrigerator. And for any of you who know anything about water leaks, you have to do a little investigating before you start tearing into the building. And I wanted to make sure that it wasn't actually the line to the refrigerator in any way, so I hooked the refrigerator back up, and I had a water filter on here, by the way, with a line in between. So this line went to the water filter, and then another line went to this part of the bottom of the refrigerator. I wanted to make sure it wasn't leaking. When I first plugged it in, there was actually a puddle here with the filter on it. So I disconnected the filter, hooked this up, and then noticed that there was only a leak in the corner here. And water can travel over to here. So I took and disconnected the refrigerator and started looking around, and this right here was obvious that it wasn't the refrigerator. I started looking at the wall, seeing some of the paint with little bubbles on it, and these bubbles are formed by water actually pooling up behind the paint and between the paint and the wallboard. And here's a bigger bubble here and a couple of here, and I'm still thinking at this point, was it a roof leak? Is it a roof leak or a water leak? And so I'm not 100% sure, but more than likely it's going to be a water leak from your plumbing pipe if it's wet and it hasn't rained in a while. And this is actually what I was looking at. I don't think it had rained for at least 2 weeks. And so I was kind of thinking, okay, time to rip some drywall out. And here are just some more ripples. You can see here kind of like it already filled up with water and receded. And so just kind of some little ripples there. And this was what was left. This is kind of the puddle I found after I'd pulled the refrigerator out. And this was probably about 4 or 6 hours later, I'm guessing, and given me a kind of thinking that, well, maybe the water leak's up here. Now, keep in mind, I built this, I remodeled all of this, and so had a pretty good idea where the plumbing pipes were, and they weren't in the front where we just saw the damage here. The water pipes are back here. There's nothing here. So this tells me that this ceiling is out of level, sloping towards the front. The water leak was back here, which you'll see in a minute, and the water sloped down the drywall and then into this area. If this drywall would have been sloping the other way, there wouldn't have been any damage in the front, or the damage would have been less. So the sloping ceilings, you put a level on these ceilings and you think, hey, wait a minute, I leveled that and everything's nice and flat. Once you have a water leak, you're going to find out how flat everything really is. After we have made up our mind that it's probably not a roof leak, we will need to put a tarp down and then start poking into the ceiling. And I suggest starting with a small hole and kind of feeling your way out, around where you're going to be. I don't recommend grabbing a hammer and, really tearing this stuff up, because if you don't know what's up there, electrical wire, stuff like that, it could be dangerous. Take this slow, start with a smaller hole, make it a little larger. If you have any insulation, pull the insulation out. And again, I don't need a real big hole to get the insulation out here. So when we can see that the insulation's wet, we know that this is going to be another clue that we got water leaking from the top up here. And once you get a hole in it like this, wouldn't be a bad idea to use your cell phone. I used my camera, and I poked the camera up in there and started taking pictures. And we can see here where it's wet here. You can see here it's still wet, and I just snapped off a couple pictures. I didn't put them all in here. We can see here it's a little drier over here. It's still wet. We got a wet spot here. It's a little drier here. Again, this is where we just pulled out this would be the front corner. This corner right here is where the water damage is on the drywall. So this is the 2x4 here for the ceiling, it is sloping down towards the front. And this is the, looks like I probably have a 4x6 or something here as the header. And now we're in an area where it's dry. This is the opposite corner. This is the other corner. This would be the front, and then the right side, if we were looking at the front of it, facing the area. So once I've kind of used my camera to get some more ideas where, that I don't have any wires in the way or other stuff, I can make the hole a little larger or cut the hole out to where it's going to be the size I'm going to use to refinish it, to replace the drywall. So here you can see we're not at that point. I'm still trying to figure out where the water is leaking from. My biggest concern was going to be the fact that I soldered all this stuff together originally and that it was leaking from the joint here. And I was like, oh no, this can't. And it actually wasn't. You'll see in a second that it wasn't my fault. It was the manufacturer's of the pipes fault. And here we're kind of zooming in. Here's the pipe, and this is actually the leak right here. And I actually thought this was a groove that I might have cut in when cutting the pipe. I would have thought that maybe this was something that I might have done by cutting some of the pipe, which I don't think I would have done that. Some people I've seen problems where they go in and they start cutting the pipe and they get a groove all the way around it and they stop because the measurement's wrong and they move it over 6 inches, cut and make another cut, and that ends up being a problem in the future. So anyway, that is it for this video. I am going to make a series of videos how I fix this, how I went about fixing the water leak first and then patching the drywall.